back to the Are We Nearly There Yet podcast. My name is Sonia, and thank you for joining me as I have a different conversation with someone each week on a different area of parenting and family life. This week I sat down with head teacher of a primary school, Ruth Jackson, who's known to many people within Kerith Community Church. We talked about how we can get through this season with our children, not just surviving, but also thriving. Hey, welcome to you, Ruth, to the Are We Nearly There Yet podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's so great to have you with us. Why don't you tell people who are listening, I recognise a lot of people at Kerith will have known you quite some time, but tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know who you are, and tell us who is family to you, Ruth.
I'm Ruth Jackson and I am the head teacher at Crowthorne CB Primary School. I've been coming to Kerith Bracknell for over 10 years now. I can't think how many it is, but it's certainly over 10, and feel very much at home there. I'm certainly missing it at the moment, definitely. Our family is just so important to me. I have a wonderful family. My parents live in Barnes, not too far away. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I've got an older brother and an older sister. My brother is very much a part of Kerith. He's Andy Jackson. Many people know him from the work he did with CAP and social justice. And we are a close family. I think I'm sort of fortunate in that my brother and sister are 2 of my closest friends, and we have got a really special bond that means a lot to me. Family is also, I've got 5 amazing nieces and nephews who I absolutely adore and am incredibly proud of. 3 of them have got married within the last year. 2 of them had Zoom weddings, which I'm still sort of trying to get over the disappointment of that. I'm really happy for them, but to miss out on that wedding day with them is, mixed emotions on those days.
Yeah. Are they going to have weddings afterwards? Or...
I hope so.
Yeah.
For Ben and Sophie, they had their wedding on Zoom, and then as soon as they were legally allowed to get married, they had a little ceremony at Kerith, which we then watched on Facebook Live. So I've joked and said they've just got Instagram to go, and then they've got the full set of social media wedding. And Sam, who's just got married recently, we are hoping that he will be able to get married in the summer and have a celebration that we can all go to. So that's family. And also, of course, Casper the cat, or Prince Casper, as many of my friends refer to him. He is spoilt rotten, and he keeps me sane. So that's family.
We really want a cat, but my daughter's allergic. We have to wait until she's left at home one day.
I would say, are you sure? Because so many people have said to me, oh, we can't have one because so-and-so's allergic. And then they get one and actually it's fine.
Well, there are some breeds, I think, that, this is not what we're meeting to chat about, but there are some breeds that are hypoallergenic, but you have to pay quite a lot of money for them. And we did test her out on some kittens a couple of years ago, and she came out in like rash and hives straight away. But we did say maybe we'll try again sometime soon to see.
Hopefully she'll grow out of it.
Yeah. So so you mentioned that you're a head teacher. Does that mean I have to call you Miss Jackson?
No.
Or can I call you Ruth?
You can call me Ruth.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you for giving up your half term to talk a little bit of, talk shop a little bit in half term when you're having a break from being a head teacher. But what does a week in the life of a primary school head teacher look like? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's almost, you want to say, do you mean pre-pandemic or pandemic?
That's what I was thinking you might say.
Yeah, it's certainly changed. I think, I don't think there is a set week. There's not a normal week. And that's one of the joys of the job, I think, that actually you go in every day just not knowing what could happen and what you might be dealing with. And often that's for really positive things, the children who will be sent to see me for good work, and the celebrations that we'll have together. Of course, sometimes things come up during the course of a day which I'm not expecting, which aren't so positive and which are stressful. If you've got a family who needs support or who might be in crisis, that's obviously a really important part of my job, that I'm there to support them. So each day is different. I'm a list maker. I like to have lists and I like to work through my list, and I've just had to come to terms with the fact that as a head teacher, that's probably not the best way to be, because I can get to the end of a day and not have crossed anything off but have added 15 other things. I'm someone who likes to finish a job before I move on to the next one, and again, that rarely happens. So I think as head teachers, we juggle so many different things. Yeah, but there are lots of positives. There are so many, you know, we talk a lot about the stress of the job and how hard it is, but there must be lots of positives to keep us all there, you know, and I think sometimes we've got to take a step back and think about those things.
Sure. What are the main changes since like the last year? Because I know it must have had a massive impact. And I think for like someone like myself as a parent, who I've seen it through the eyes of my children, and I've seen it through the eyes of I've seen what my school have done to invest in my kids over the last year, but I don't really fully understand what it must like being in your shoes. There's been so much change, hasn't there? Like,
there has been. You know, we joke that there was no policy for how to lock down a school in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And we had to, it's been a year of firsts. We had to sort of make things up as we've gone along, really. I was actually joking with some other heads the other week when it snowed, and we were sort of laughing about the fact that up until March last year, we thought the most stressful thing we had to do was call a snow day. You know, that decision, are we going to close for snow or not?
Yeah.
That was like, you know, so stressful. But now, having locked down twice and switched to remote learning, you think, oh, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Snow days will be welcome. But yeah, it's been a year of firsts, and in some ways you think we're glad we didn't know what we were going to have to deal with, because it was best to just take it a day at a time and to see what happens. There have been lots of frustrations. I think lots of sort of government announcements that came too late for schools, where we weren't given enough notice, and then we're trying to sort of reassure parents and do our absolute best for the children, and there's a frustration of, oh, if we just had longer, or if we could have done it this way, it would have been better. So there've certainly been frustrations through the year, but there have been positives as well. I think staff and children have been so creative, the way they've adapted to the situation.
Yeah.
It's just incredible what I see the children doing now, and my staff as well, to switch to teaching the curriculum remotely and to get the quality of learning that they're getting is just amazing. And if you'd said to them this time last year, you're going to have to do this, they probably would have been terrified, but they've just done it and adapted so well. Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of my staff. So it's been a time of creativity, and I also think it's just really strengthened communities. People have come together to just support each other, and you know, even within the last week just before half term, hearing families in our community being made aware of another family in difficulty and just desperate to offer help and to find ways to, you know, solutions and ways to support each other. And I'm really touched by that. I just think perhaps we aren't celebrating that enough, the way that people are still just being there for each other and trying to help each other through this difficult time. So so it's been a hard year. I know there's a lot of talk about how many head teachers will probably leave at the end of this, because they're exhausted and they're drained. But I think if that's true, then there are a lot of people who'll be proud of what they've done. I think school has been amazing, and the way they've adapted has been incredible, holding the children in the community together through a difficult time. Yeah,
it's been so good from my perspective as a parent. I mean, none of my children go to your school or even in your area. They're in a different area, but what our schools have done it's just been outstanding. And you know, it is a different thing, isn't it? Standing up in front of a class of 30 children to recording yourself or going live on, you know, the technology of it. You know, when you're in the classroom, you don't need to know that how Microsoft Teams works or whatever platform it is you're using, do you? Everyone's kind of upskilled and done different things, and I've definitely experienced that sense of community as well. I know our school had a pot of money to be able to help like people with tech support, but also they did like a crowdfunding thing, and people came together, and that target was reached, you know, within days. You know, they've reached out for other things, for needs for people in the community, and people have responded so well. And as you say, that we're also remotely apart from one another, but in many ways feel more together.
I think
than ever.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that. And I also, take what you said. I think the first time around last year, I hadn't quite appreciated that head teachers and, you know, everyone in education were finding out the same things that we were finding out at the same time. So some parents were probably getting on the phone to schools and saying, help, answer this, and you guys just heard it yourselves, so you were still working it out. So
I put that in my newsletter before half term, just a reminder to parents that if there was an announcement over half term, that I would be hearing it at the same time as them.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
just be patient with us.
Yeah, and I think it's worth us remembering that, definitely. Yeah, well, if there's something next Monday, you'll be
Yes.
getting all that. What does this
Yeah.
mean? Oh, there is a lot in the media, isn't there, about how children, you know, like we say, there's been good stuff in this situation. As much as it's been hard, there's been good stuff, but there's also a lot about children who will be struggling in this season, and undoubtedly there will be children who will be really struggling for all different kinds of reasons, if they're living in like actual poverty or in abusive households, or there's maybe emotional poverty in the family and mental health issues, all those things. And I don't want in any way to underestimate or undermine those real situations for children, but there's also been an awful lot, I think, that has been gained. Like, the media will focus in on the negative stuff, but there's also so much, I think, that has been gained by children in this season. Do you want to talk a little bit about the reflections you've seen, not just on children surviving in this season, but also like thriving?
Absolutely, yeah. It's something I feel really strongly and passionately about, is the media narrative that all children are struggling, all children are going to have mental health issues, it's going to take us years to recover from this. And I feel like they are writing off a generation who has been through something that none of us have been through, but we can't say now actually how they're going to struggle or what they're going to find hard. And I feel like people need to step back and just give them a chance, because children are amazing. They are so resilient. And there will be some who absolutely will struggle to get back to normal, you know, when we get there. But schools are already identifying children in this period who are struggling. We're not waiting until they come back to school to support them. And I don't think enough is being made of that. So we are still having daily contact with our children. And if a teacher has a concern, I'm being alerted immediately. Our family support partner, Jo Dawson, she's with us, still with us every week, and she's still meeting with the children that she sees. So, and like the children you referred to who might be in poverty or might already have had sort of problems at home, the support for those children is still there. We haven't just left them. They haven't been on their own. Schools are still reaching out, and the support mechanisms are in place. And I just have a concern that the media is referring to research that's been done, saying that this generation is going to struggle, this is a disaster, and I'm just concerned that people are accepting it as, oh, that's it. And I have a thing about words that are spoken over children as if they're truth, and I am concerned that children are hearing this, you know, that this is a disaster, this is terrible, they're all going to struggle. And they're going to think that that's true. Oh, you know, they're going to start thinking, oh my goodness, yeah, this is awful, and I'm supposed to be struggling, and I'm supposed to be sad, and it's just not necessarily the case. And I just feel we need to give them a chance. I really do. There are so many positives that have come out of this. The children, and obviously I know most about Crowthorne, but I do sort of have friends and colleagues who work in different schools, and we're all saying that, you know, the creativity and the independence that the children have got, they would never have got if they'd just been sitting in the classroom. So they've had sort of, it's almost a bonus what they've had in that respect. And their organisational skills, you know, they're organising their own learning. They're just being so sensible about it. I'm incredibly proud of what they're doing. And I think I want to make sure that when they're actually back in the building with us, we are looking out for those children who really do need support, and some will just need it short term. But if we just assume that every child needs the same, we're going to miss those children who absolutely need the long-term support. So I guess I just want people just to be aware that the media is saying this as if it's definitely going to happen. I even heard a report that they were saying this generation is going to be financially sort of less well off when they're earning, when they're older, because of what they've been through. And I was like, how can you possibly know? We've never lived through this before. Let's just give this generation a chance to show us what they can do, because I think they will have gained so much from this time, and we need to give them the opportunity to use it in a positive way, not just write them off or write off this last year as a disaster, because it hasn't been. There's so many good things that could come out of it.
Yeah. What you say about like I've read that as well, about like their future earning potential. It's like, well, actually that completely contradicts the fact that they have been so creative and learned all these new skills, and you'll see loads of self-starters and entrepreneurs and you know, who knows, we just don't know. And I love what you say about the words we speak over children are so important. And I doubt if many of us as parents are actively saying this stuff to our children or reading out news articles to our children, but they pick it up, don't they?
Yeah.
They it's in their background. They pick it up. They overhear conversations with parents and grandparents on the phone, or, you know, between parents, and or they pick up like the concern and the worry that maybe some parents might have. In what kind of ways have you seen children thriving through your school community?
I think the responses to some of the home learning, where we've given them sort of freedom in how to do it and what to do, and the quality of what they've sent back, you think that's something where they've really gained from not being in a classroom where perhaps it was a bit more controlled by the teacher, but actually you see their personalities coming through. And so, yeah, the quality of what they're doing is a real encouragement, and they're definitely thriving. Seeing the children out and about, I know during the first lockdown when the weather was better, it was easier, but the amount of time children are spending outside is a positive. Lots of them are finding, because they're doing their learning on screen, that actually they don't want to be on screen for the evening, whereas when they're in school, I'm fully aware that lots of them will go home and spend their evening playing games and just looking at a console or looking at a screen. So actually seeing families walk past our school fence on their sort of family walk or on their bike ride and waving at us, and I just think, oh great, they're outside, they're in the fresh air, and that's positive. And we've also had children doing the simple things like cooking meals for their families and then sending us photos saying, you know, as part of my maths today I was doing this, I was doing the weighing and the measuring, and having those family times where I guess parents are almost giving themselves permission to step away from the, you know, what perhaps was planned, but actually saying, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do our home learning in a different way. And I think that's great. I think look for the positives, and always think about what you can take out of this and how you can make a situation a positive experience, and build memories with the children during this time, because this, you know, this is a significant part of their lives. And just think, when they're older, what will they look back and remember? And will it be a time when you came together as a family and saw it as a positive and tried to get positives out of it? And I've certainly seen examples of families doing that, which is great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I keep saying to people, I might have even said on a different conversation on the podcast, that for like a 7-year-old, this last year of their life, that's a big percentage of their life. Compared with your life or my life, like it's a much higher percentage. So they've had a much longer experience of this relative to their life than we have. Yeah, there's going to be there might be some times in that have been harder. And as I say, some families, I know it has been a real struggle for some children, but for many, there is just so much that has been gained. Like last time in the first lockdown last year, we were like, right, we're gonna view this as an adventure as a family, and we would go out for our daily walk. We went back last year when we were only allowed out for one walk or one exercise a day. You know, it's really strict, and we would go out at the end of the working day, or, you know, early summer evening, just around the block sometimes, and we'd say, oh, this is really nice, like, why don't we do this? And my husband would say, you know, we can do this in normal times as well, but we just didn't used to.
I said that to my sister, because we run a lot, and we were sort of almost laughing at how many people were out doing their exercise, because they'd been told they could only exercise once a day. Suddenly everybody was out exercising.
I know.
We should have done this years ago, just said to people, you can only go out once a day, and we'd have been the fittest nation going. So yeah.
It's a bit like that when you've got a button to press and it says do not press, you're more likely to want to press it. It's absolutely. That kind of psychology, isn't it? Yeah.
I think as well, being out, just people being more connected with each other. And I still notice that when I'm sort of walking around town here or going out doing my run or whatever, people are still acknowledging each other and saying hello, and smiling more than they ever did before. And I love that, because when I'm running, I'll always say hello to people, and it's just so nice when people say hello back. But I think that's something else we've gained, that people don't just look down at the ground anymore when they're walking, but actually people are making eye contact and talking to each other.
Yeah, so it's really good. Have you got any kind of tips for how, as a parent, I and other people listening to this can support my children to aim for that thriving, or the other side of it, anyone who doesn't feel like they're thriving, who feels like they are only just surviving? Got tips for those kind of two camps you could share? Reintegrating our children when school is allowed to restart.
I think the most important thing is to focus on your child and not listen to what is being said generally about children, but just really be aware of your own child and what they are experiencing and how they are feeling. I always say to parents, listen to your child. Don't necessarily quiz them or question them, but just listen and observe, and you will gain so much from listening to the chit chat rather than feeling you've got to sit them down and have a conversation about how they're feeling and how they're going to cope with going back to school. I think routines are key, absolutely key, and especially with the return to school sort of becoming more imminent, I think keep those routines in place for everyone's sake. And if your child has a bad day, I've said this to a couple of parents recently, don't panic. It's okay, you can start again tomorrow. We're really aware that this has been a hard time because so many parents have had to do more work from home than perhaps in the first lockdown. It was a very different experience.
Yeah, more people were furloughed first time, weren't they? Yeah. And the learning was less in terms of, well, from my experience, what was being provided, because, schools were thrown in at the deep end. You guys didn't have all the structures in place for online learning, and this time it is set up. So we've received loads more work, which has been a good thing in terms of not like delaying our child learning in that way, but it has meant it's more intense.
Harder. So I think everyone just be kind to yourselves, and if you have a day where things are not good, don't just keep going, don't just keep doing the same thing. Actually step back and say, we're going to take some time out here. It's not the end of the world. The learning will still be there tomorrow, and the schools will understand. I think we get concerned when children don't engage for days at a time, but we completely understand that there'll be times when the children need to have a break and the parents need to have a break. So I think just be kind to yourselves and don't panic if you're not having a good day. We all have bad days. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah. I think as well, acknowledge to your children that it is okay to be sad or to find something difficult. I think too often we try and almost remove anything that's going to upset the children or that they're going to find hard. We try and smooth it over because we don't want them to have a difficult experience. But the only way the children are going to learn to manage their emotions is if they experience those emotions. So if your child is feeling sad, that's fine, because at some point in life we all feel sad. We don't learn how to deal with grief or sadness by never experiencing it. So don't panic if your child is having a tough time, but reach out, get support. Schools are there to support you in this time. Don't feel you're on your own, but also don't feel that you can completely protect your child from what's happening. And it's okay if they feel sad at some point. It's an opportunity to teach them how we get over that. What do we do if we feel sad? How do we cope with those emotions?
Validating how they feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was chatting to another friend actually, who is actually also a head teacher, primary school head teacher, the other day, and he was saying about mental ill health in children has become more of a kind of mainstream conversation, and rightly so. Sometimes there's kind of an assumption that sadness equals a mental health issue, and of course it doesn't. Sadness is a normal emotion that we all feel, and as you say, children feeling those emotions and being allowed, not being told, oh, it's fine, quick, and paper over those emotions, allowing space for that, time for that, pausing for that, naming it. I think it's just a really powerful thing, and that is what helps children become more emotionally resilient and emotionally healthy. Being emotionally healthy doesn't mean you don't feel all those different things. You only ever feel happy, does it? That's not real life.
No, I think that's so important. And like you said, I think the increased talk about mental health in some ways is almost skewing it a bit and complicating it, because people almost have this fear of children feeling sad or finding it hard to cope with something, but it's about how we support them through that that's the important thing, rather than trying to make sure they don't ever experience it.
Yeah. And for those children, if we talk about it in terms of everyone that ever feels sad has got a mental health need, then actually those who genuinely do have a mental health need are maybe not seen or noticed as much because everyone's being grouped under that umbrella.
Absolutely.
Which isn't helpful.
It's the same with the talk, I think, of anxiety. And we talk to the children about how we all feel anxious at some point. And that's actually our body sometimes telling us that there is something that we need to be aware of. It's not necessarily a bad emotion. So we do lots of talk about emotions and what they're teaching us and how we deal with them. And again, those things, talk about supporting the children, when they come back into school, they'll still be surrounded by that support and those strategies and programs that we already have in place for them.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think with the anxiety thing you said, it's a bit like, I always use the example of like, if you touch a hot radiator, you'll feel the pain because it's warning you, or you go to touch a fire.
Yeah.
You know, you'll feel that instant because that is telling your body that that's dangerous. And and it's the same with certain emotions, like they're showing us and telling us, aren't they? And yeah, it's good that as parents we're partnering with our schools
definitely
in these conversations. And yeah, I just want to pick up what you said a bit earlier about if anyone's struggling, you know, reach out to the school. I know our school, the other week we did not finish. I had such a busy work week and so did my husband, and I'd got about 6 lessons that I hadn't done with my twins by the Friday night, and I messaged the school saying, I'm really sorry, we'll catch up at the weekend. They were brilliant. They just said, start fresh on Monday, don't worry, like please don't put the pressure on yourselves. The annoying thing is my children wanted to finish it all, so I still had to finish it with them on the Monday because they wanted to.
Yeah, but I think that's so important. Do reach out to the school, because we want to know. And also if children are struggling at home, or if they're being resistant to you as parents and saying they don't want to do their work, the teachers will step in and help. You know, I've had some of my teachers actually have Zoom calls with the children and say, now come on, what are you doing telling your mum you can't do this work? Yes, you can. So yeah, the teachers want to help, and they'll be there to support, so do reach out.
It's amazing how the promise of a phone call with Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so all of a sudden makes your children, and then we think as parents, we have zero authority here. It's just the teachers.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for coming and chatting to me. We're nearly at the end of our conversation today, but as you know, we're called Are We Nearly There Yet? Which is a question from children, often when they just have left the house and going out on a journey. But as adults supporting children, whether that's through parenthood or through education, like yourself, it's often us as adults on the journey. So Ruth, looking back to when you first started out on your own journey of working with children, knowing what you know now, what essential items would you pack that you wouldn't have maybe thought of to pack back then?
I think resilience, definitely. I think, you know, everybody has a view on education. We've all been to school, so everyone thinks they are able to talk about school in a knowledgeable way, and education policies and so on. And there are times when people are very willing to give you their opinion and tell you how things should be done. So that can sometimes be a challenge. So I think definitely I would pack a whole caseload of resilience.
I've actually heard other friends say that it's a profession, and I think there are a couple of other professions where this happens as well, but it does happen a lot with teaching profession, where everyone else thinks they can appraise and have an opinion, whereas no one goes up to the bank manager and say, this is the way you should do your job. Or
because we've all been in school, so we all
think we know. Sure.
Yeah. So I think the other thing I would pack for myself, and probably earlier than I realized that I needed it, was carving out really specific time for myself where I could be me and not sort of Miss Jackson, not the head teacher.
Sure.
But finding that place and space where there's nothing, it's not anything to do with school, and not feeling guilty about that. So for me, for example, it is cricket and football and running, and I will prioritise those things over anything else. So my PTA at school laugh in the summer because they're really restricted on when they can do certain events, because it will depend on when Surrey are playing cricket at the Oval, because I'll be up there watching them rather than doing an event at school. So I think I would pack that. I would pack that time when it is about me as a person rather than me as a head teacher. That's so important. And it took me a long time to realise it, and then to do it without feeling guilty. But it's absolutely essential. And I think if there was one more thing I would pack, it would be what I would call an encourager. So that person, and I can think of who mine is, that person who cheers you on from the sidelines, who checks in on you, takes an interest in what you're doing, wouldn't be afraid to challenge you if they thought there was something that needed talking about, but who just roots for you. And that person has been just so important to me over the years. So yeah, pack your encourager who will go with you and just be there. For me, it's not somebody who's in school. It's not somebody in my family, but somebody who has just always taken a real interest in me and what I'm doing. And they are so important. There's times when I'm feeling lonely, because it can be a lonely job, or you're feeling isolated, or you're thinking that no one understands. And then I see this person and it's like, yeah, they're my encourager, just cheering me on. And that's what we all need. So make sure you pack your encourager.
That's so good. Resilience, carving out time for yourself and your encourager.
Yeah.
So good. And I think we could all take that, whether we're educator or parent, whatever our role is in the life of children. Those things are things that would help us all.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming to chat to me, Ruth.
Thank you, Sonia. Good to talk.
And you, and enjoy the rest of your half term. And I hope that by the time this podcast is released next Monday, we may have heard the latest announcement. So
maybe.
I hope it's an announcement that you want. So
thank you. Thanks, Sonia.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Well, thank you to Ruth for joining me in this week's conversation. I just encourage you to speak words of life and affirmation over our children, whether you have your own children, whether you know people with children. Let's not be speaking that they're going to fail. Let's not be speaking that they're going to have issues. Let's be open with them. Let's talk about their emotion. Let's highlight and help young people and children who are experiencing difficulties, and be praying for them and help them practically and signpost them. But let's also, as a generation, as this generation of children and young people, let's be speaking goodness over them and praying for them and wanting and expecting the best for them and from them. We hope you enjoyed this week. Join us next week for the last in season 2 of Are We Nearly There Yet?